Live from WJZ, this is breaking news.
Sailing, we heard a really loud explosion. We turn around and there's like a 200-foot plume of smoke, and we're like, holy crap.
An emergency on the Patapsco River tonight. An investigation underway after a ship explosion with 23 people on board right near the site of the Key Bridge. Good evening, everyone. Welcome into the news at 11. I'm Rick Ritter. What an eerie sight tonight at the Patapsco, not far from where we watched the Key Bridge tragedy unfold a little more than a year ago. WJZ the first to break this story for you tonight on CBS News Baltimore after a viewer called our news desk telling us they felt what seemed like an earthquake at home and saw the fireball go right into the sky. We have live team coverage for you tonight at 11 o'clock. WJZ investigator Mike Helgren will have much more on what we're learning about this ship, where it was headed. But we begin tonight with Caroline Forbach on your corner in Riviera Beach. And Caroline, you spoke with those who felt this explosion and saw those flames right in front of them tonight.
That's right, Rick. And some people told us that they thought at first the explosion was part of the ongoing demolition work here at the Key Bridge collapse site. But that father and son who we spoke to say they saw it from their sailboat, followed by the distress signal coming from the ship. Jay Steinmetz was sailing with his son in the Patapsco Monday evening when they heard a noise.
We heard a really loud explosion. We turn around and there's like a 200-foot plume of smoke, maybe 2 or 5 minutes, and we hear mayday, mayday. A boat just exploded right near us.
Coast Guard officials confirmed an explosion on board a cargo ship called the Sapphire, hauling coal in Baltimore's harbor near the Key Bridge collapse site. Neighbors in Dundalk say they could hear the explosion from Jimmy's Famous Seafood.
I was walking into Jimmy's Famous Seafood right after my soccer practice, and I just heard a big boom, and I was like, oh my God, then an explosion just happened.
The Baltimore City Fire Department says the 751-foot bulk carrier with 23 people on board showed signs of damage consistent with a fire and explosion. No injuries were reported, but given its location, some people in the community were still concerned.
I'm kind of concerned about what it's going to do to our, harbor right now. A lot of our guests who come in here do work on the, shipping yards and everything like that. So, of course, with the bridge down, I don't know how this is going to affect what actually goes on in the harbor.
Baltimore fire officials said the ship remained afloat and the fire is contained. And the cause of the explosion is still unknown, but Governor Wes Moore confirmed tonight that state agencies are working together to determine why this happened. Rick?
Caroline, a lot of unanswered questions. We want to bring in Mike Helgren now to hopefully piece some of this together for us. Mike, we don't know much about the crew that was on board, although you did some digging into the ship's records. We know 23 people were on board this. Where was the ship from and where was it headed tonight?
Rick, the ship was flagged out of Liberia or West Africa. It had been in Baltimore for 2 days, and it was going to be headed eventually to East Africa, to Mauritius. It was set to get there by the middle of next month. Now, this is a fairly large ship, 751 feet long. At least it was able to float on its own. It did have the help of some tugboats. They still have to look at the damage, how extensive that damage was before they will allow it to move on after this. The ship was built in 2012. It is 13 years old. You saw that large fireball, though, so it will be imperative to try to evaluate the kind of damage that was done to the ship. And as we've mentioned, at least all 23 crew members are accounted for in this tragedy.
And Mike, we all remember where we were when the Key Bridge tragedy happened. No one will ever forget that. It took a long time, though, for that scene to be cleared. A much different scene in the Patapsco tonight. What is next for the W Sapphire now that it's been tugged out of the channel?
Rick, a far different scene. What they're doing is they're moving it to a secure area, and then the Coast Guard typically does the preliminary investigation into incidents like this. With the Key Bridge tragedy, we saw the NTSB get involved. They do not typically get involved unless it's a mass casualty event or the damages are above $600,000. So the Coast Guard will be in charge here, also with assistance from the Baltimore City Fire Department, and then they will decide what happens next to this craft, and they have to evaluate it and make sure that it's safe before it is cleared to leave. But there are still a lot of questions. We should also note, just like with the Key Bridge tragedy, all these crew members do have the help of organizations that get together and try to provide support to these 23 crew members. We also understand there were 2 pilots on board the Sapphire, and it was fully loaded with coal. Right now, we just have to get to the bottom of what caused this explosive fireball. Rick?
And WJZ investigator Mike Halgren helping us piece this all together tonight. Both Mike and Caroline, great coverage. Thank you for your time tonight, Mike. Now, just to recap for you quickly, an explosion on board a cargo ship that was moving through the channel in the Patapsco River, again, right near the site of the Key Bridge. And that explosion could be felt in nearby communities like Dundalk, Riviera Beach, and Fort Armstead. We're told 23 people were on board. Fortunately, no injuries were reported. That investigation underway tonight into the exact cause of this explosion. Of course, as we learn more, we'll bring it to you on air and online.